right now, currently. I'm joined here by Anand, also known as Lucci. Say hello to the guys, Lucci.
What's up, everybody? What's going on?
So we are here today to talk about one of our favorite topics that nobody else wants to talk about besides us, and that is fear and trading, right? That is the topic of conversation for the day. So before we hop into everything, we're just going to get ourselves situated here, let a couple more people to trickle in.
Yeah, this will be a good one, guys, too. And I'm sure, you're experiencing it, not only in your trading, but, in life as well. Like if you're starting a business and things like that, or, afraid to make a certain decision because of the outcome and all that. So we're talking about all of that stuff. So feel free, again, to chime in with your questions and comments. We'd love to hear what you got to say.
Yeah, it's all related, man. It's all interrelated. And if you have questions at any time throughout the webinar, or if you got a story, man, I mean, I love hearing people's stories at various points, especially if it relates to fear and trading. Pop them in the questions box. We will answer them. We'll have a Q&A session at the end of the webinar, but we'll also take some throughout as long as they're pertinent to what we're talking about. So just want to make sure everyone can hear me, right? And hear Lucci. If you can't, if you have any audio or video problems, just let us know. But when you have time, never ask, how do you get the name Sang Lucci? John, we'll explain that where Sang Lucci came from at the end of the webinar. I like that question. It's funny how rarely we get that question. But all right, so Lucci, let's start, man. Let's hop into this. So, as we said, the topic of the day is fear and trading. I mean, just putting you on the spot right here. What was the first thing that came to your head when I said I want to do a discussion about fear and trading? What were you thinking?
I was like, oh, damn it. I was like, damn it. Because it's all, whenever we do things, now it always seems like in my life in general, like everything happens for a reason, So you'll hit me up and be like, okay, we got to do this thing on fear. And I'm like, that's exactly what's going on right now. kind of a freaky coincidence.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, let's not even talk about you specifically yet. Let's talk about traders in general. I mean, you've been trading obviously for, 7 years now?
Yeah. And actually, I thought it was a long time. I thought it was a long time. And then recently, talking to a lot of these traders who are in the game for 20, 25 years and 30 years, I mean, that is some longevity for your ass, man. I mean, I feel like once you can break the 3-year, I would say more like the 3-4 year mark, then you're a trader. This is what you're going to do for the rest of you. This is what you're going to do and what you're going to try to make a run at. So I would say in my career as a trader, where I've experienced the most level of fear would be electing to become a trader in the first place. So going through the endeavor of saying, okay, I'm going to drop all this other stuff that I got going on, and I'm going to try to make it as a trader, knowing full well that I'm not going to get paid for a significant amount of time. So that was one of the first major fear hurdles that you kind of have to get over. And you could equate that with starting a business. You could equate that with, let's say leaving your home in search of a new one, so for example, if you want to just move all the way to Seattle and start a new life and things like that, most people have that kind of fear. So that's the kind of fear that I'm talking about as the beginning hurdle. And then you have the money fears, of course. Can you continue to provide for your family, put money on the table, whatever the case is. And then you have the fear of, the failure. You have the fear of the pressure and all that kind of stuff. And then it really just becomes about money and, the game between you and your mind. So I would say those are the different stages that you go through as far as just general fear here.
Right. And actually, Clement, I'm probably butchering the name, but Clement mentioned in the question box, going from simulating to real trading. Right, and you didn't start like that. I mean, you went straight live, didn't you? When you started the firm,
straight live. I mean, the good thing about the firm that I was with, they were just like, dude, why would you be on a simulator? Because it doesn't simulate emotional response, and if you can't simulate emotional response, what good is the simulator? The simulator is good, I guess, to give you a sense of understanding of how stuff moves and how to react and numbers and charts and stuff like that.
Right.
You know, but you soon realize that the more time you spend on the simulator, the more time you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. I've seen people that have sat on simulators for like a year, man.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
the fear of going to actually trading real time is so much that they continue to sit on the simulator for years even.
Yep,
It's like, oh, I
yep.
got to perfect this strategy on the simulator, and then all of
Right.
a sudden go to real-time trading and get smoked.
Yep, yep. Yeah, I mean, I think a simulator is a very dangerous thing sometimes because it's like you get used to being in this padded environment, right? And there's something to be said for seeing how markets move, especially if you're like completely new to trading and finance, just kind of seeing how stuff generally works, learning how to place a trade or whatever without
Yeah.
actually putting money on the line. But you got to make that transition, you know, as quickly, hopefully, as you can, because the longer you're on the sim, the longer you're acclimating yourself to a pattern environment that will not exist in the real world. Right? It's not going to happen. So Clement, you know, there's that's sort of our advice right there. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can close this stuff. Hey, Eric. Eric, can you close that door? Sorry, guys. We just moved to the new offices. So, anyways, so now let's talk about. Let's start kind of taking it, Luch, to you personally, right? And let's talk about. Well, first, let's talk about professionals. What do you think professional traders fear that's different than what your average day trader fears, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, number one, I don't think you can be 100%. I don't think you can be in a situation where you never experience fear as a professional trader. I think people are too loose with the term professional trader in the sense that, oh, he's a professional and he doesn't have to deal with the same shit that I have to deal with, which is
Right.
very untrue, which is extremely untrue. We deal
Right.
with the same pressures and the same fears. We have to make the same sacrifices. We think the same way, all that kind of stuff. It's just some people do it a little better than others and don't put that much emphasis on that emotional response, on that destructive emotional response, right? So,
Right.
so we all, mentally respond to things, emotionally respond to things. There's good emotion and there's bad emotion. So I would say for professional traders, the fear that they go through is, can they continue to perform? And that's a big one, man, because once you start performing, there's a level of pressure that gets sort of thrown on you, especially if you're in the public eye, right? If you're in the public eye, people know about you,
And you're managing other people's money.
and you're managing other people's money, you know.
You happen to be in that situation.
You happen to be in that situation, you know.
Right.
So that is one of the biggest fears I would think of professional traders. Can they consistently perform as they've been doing? And I would say that of any high performance career. So athletes, CEOs, whatever you want to say, business coaches, or whatever these high performing career choices that you might elect to take. You have, I would say that you have that fear. So you've achieved a little bit of success, gained some notoriety, you got a little money in your pocket, and can you continue doing this? Can you continue doing this? So at any point, you might go into a funk where you're questioning your ability to continue doing this.
Yeah, it's like, you think about, we always give the analogy of a tennis player, right? Like, you're Andy Murray, and your biggest fear is, am I ever going to win Wimbledon? Can I ever win a major tournament, right? Can I ever get to the top?
Can I win without Ivan Lendl?
Right. Can I win? Can I win the big one? And then you think that when you win the big one, that you've arrived. After that, it's smooth sailing. That you're going to be good to go. Traders think about the same thing. Once I get that $100,000 in my bank account, once I do X, Y, Z, then I arrive.
Once I do this, once I do that, absolutely.
What you don't realize is it's like once you break through into that next level, then you've moved up one stratosphere. But in that next level, there's all kinds of new fears, right? It's like, oh, well, am I going to win another major? Am I going to get another 100,000? Am I just a guy who got lucky, or can I do it again? Like so I think what you and I were talking about before, Luch, is before we hopped on here, was that fear never leaves. Right.
It never leaves you. It never leaves you. And for most people, actually for most professionals, it's also what drives them. It's also the same thing that drives them. It's the same thing that drives them to continue to perform, to continue to better themselves, and to continue to test the extremities of what their capabilities or what their perceived capabilities can bring them.
Right.
You know, so it's that constant sort of fear and pressure and all that forces professional traders, especially in this market environment, to adapt, to continue to change, and to continue to figure out how to make money. And most traders, and again, you know, we can just take this as experience from my prop trading firm, none of these people exist anymore. You know, a lot of people don't exist anymore. So to consider yourself a professional trader, I would think it means that you've been through several market environments, you survived, and you found a way to make money in all these different market environments.
Right, and you're doing it, you know, for a living. You know, you are,
Exactly.
you know, you are either managing someone else's money, or you're getting, you're doing enough on your own that you can live off that.
Right. Right.
So, you know, I think the number one thing that we've sort of covered at this point is like fear is not necessarily a bad thing, right? If
Yes.
you,
Yes.
you know, and some of the best traders, I mean, I remember Paul Tudor Jones, there's a Paul Tudor Jones quote that talks about how he uses his own feeling of discomfort with the position to say, if I feel this uncomfortable position, I'm getting out, right?
Exactly.
And that's his method, you know, that's, not, I'm not saying, no, but he's just like, his emotions are a barometer, right? He's like, why would I put myself in a position where I'm going to feel like shit all the time? Right?
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly, and usually, instinctually, if you look at, you know, as a trader who you know understands entries and exits and things like that, and trading at a high level, like Mr. Tudor Jones, obviously he trades a considerable more amount of cash than me, but the instinctual gut feeling of, oh my God, you know, I'm kind of wrong in this situation, but I don't want to let go of this position. I feel absolute shit. You know, you need to get rid of it. And most of the times, you know, we end up burning a hole in our pocket simply because we'd rather avoid, you know, we'd rather somehow see this thing come back to break even. We'd rather, you know, we'd rather fill our heads with other bullshit and blame it elsewhere rather than just book the loss. A simple concept like book the loss. So Tudor Jones is like, okay, he's trying to find a different, if I actually feel like shit and my stomach is turning here, then that's my cue to get out, you know? So you might have another mental trick where it's like, okay, if my instinct is telling me to get out, but I'm not paying attention to my instinct, then maybe you want to go ahead and do some things like programming your exits, which is something that I've thought about as well, you know? So everybody's going to have a different workaround, but it goes back to understanding what emotions are good and what emotions get you into trouble. You know, so Tudor Jones, and by the way, any professional trader is essentially a master of his own emotions. You know, so most traders you will find, especially the pros, they don't bullshit around, they don't mess around, especially even in their speech or whatever. They don't, you know, there's no time for that. There's no time for that whatsoever.
And they just have a level, I think, of self-awareness where they're just like, even if they feel stuff that they don't really like all the time, they're able to separate themselves and be like, yeah, I feel like crap right now. It's because of X, Y, Z. They don't let how they feel drive them into everything they do, right? And I think one of the things that, you know, guys, if you want to take away here, it's, I think beginning traders often fear taking a loss. It's one of the first things that's tough for traders to do is to say, all right, I'm booking a loss, whereas professionals, and Lucci, you know, you talk about this a lot, say taking a loss is sometimes the best thing you can do. If you're afraid of it, then you're probably gonna, you know, shoot yourself in the foot more times.
Exactly. If you, and again, this was something that we talked about before, is like people would naturally rather avoid losing than achieving success. Like this was a quote that I ran on some article somewhere. But when you think about that, it's pretty true. Like people would rather take the safe route on something.
Right.
So if naturally you're predisposed to having this emotion, right, put yourself in a risky situation. What do you think you're going to do when you're staring at a losing position? You're afraid to take that loss. You're very afraid just to book that loss. And then all of a sudden it spirals into the worst case scenario, which always happens when you're not ready for these things. And when the worst case scenario hits, you all of a sudden have this epiphany and you get pushed into that place that you didn't want to be. Naturally, because you didn't accept it. You didn't accept it. You did not accept that loss as a possible occurrence. So you don't know what to do with it. So this is the plight of most traders. And I would say this is the barrier for most retail traders or most beginning traders becoming professionals. You know, that's like the one thing that you got to figure out. You have to figure out how to do that. So you got to reprogram yourself on what it is to take a loss. You know, nobody likes to take a loss, and people hate taking losses. This is why you don't have everybody in the startup world. This is why you don't have, you know, everybody becoming entrepreneurs. This is why you don't have anybody attacking a lot of these high, you know, positions and all that kind of stuff, because it's not the safe route. You got to fail. You got to see. You got to, you know, you got to get beaten down and come back several times before you have that success that you want, and not a lot of people are ready for it.
And it's, I mean, talking about like the corollary here with entrepreneurship. I mean, there were things that when we first started, I remember when we first started doing everything, you know, 3 years ago, I was afraid to get on phone calls with lawyers, right?
Yeah,
I really didn't want to be on a phone call with lawyers because I was like, I don't like being in situations where people know a lot more than I do about a specific topic, and yet I'm responsible for interacting with them about certain points, about certain things. And I would get really anxious, and I would put off phone calls with lawyers, you know.
Oh, whoa, okay.
And I just didn't want to. I was like,
you just didn't want to.
I was like avoiding it. It was, you know, I didn't want to deal with it. And nowadays, that's like laughable to me, right? Because when you get enough, 9 times out of 10, what you're really afraid of is it's all in your head, right? I mean,
everything is in your head. Yes.
So the more exposure you can get to it, the more you feel. You know, for a lot of traders, they're like, I thought I was going to die if I took a $10,000 loss, and then I took the loss. And I looked around, and I was still here, and my friends and family didn't abandon me, and I could still eat food and sleep at night. And I was like,
Chappelle, you know what? And it's interesting. You know, I love my, you know, correlations into the real world examples, right? I was watching this interview with David Letterman and Dave Chappelle. And Chappelle was talking about, you know, what it is to be like a great comedian. And he was talking about everybody thinks that, you know, what happens when you bomb? What happens when you bomb hard? And he paused for like a good 5 seconds, and he was like, nothing happens. You still get paid the same amount. You know, you're not going to die. You're not, and nothing, you know, nothing really happens. But you're just not used to that outcome. You're not used to that outcome. People don't put themselves in that situation. So they fear it. They fear it at the same time. And that fear is enough to either stop them from doing it completely, not even try, or when they do, it's very half-assed as well.
Right, and that's, when you look at a guy like Chappelle, it's a perfect example of sort of the benefits of fear sometimes, right? I mean, when I look at fear, I think about the fact that fear is a barrier to entry, right? And if you can get into a situation, if you can overcome more barriers to entry than everyone else around you, then you're going to find yourself in an environment where there's going to be less competition, right? There's less people around, right? So trading, like anytime you feel fear, that's actually sometimes a signal to you to say, like, if you can push through this, there's so much, you know, there's opportunity beyond there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how many people are actually hilarious people in person, right? But, and then people say to them all the time, oh, you should be a stand-up comic.
Should be a stand-up comic, yes.
Maybe they could be like a Chappelle, but they're terrified. They're
terrified.
But the guys some guys suck when they start out. They suck, but they can actually get up there, get through the fear, and they become good.
Yeah. And he ended that segment by saying that the guys who are really great, the great comedians, when they bomb hard. They bomb the hardest.
Right.
They always bomb the hardest. Those are the greatest comedians.
Right. All right. So let's talk about, and Chestnut made a good point here. Michael Chestnut, former scholarship winner. Everybody, just want to, you know, give him a shout out. Says being wrong and losing money are 2 huge things that we are conditioned to be uncomfortable. That's how the world works, but it's a complete opposite in trading. You're going to be wrong a lot. You're going to lose money a lot. You know, if you can get comfortable with that, then you can be a very profitable trader.
One thing I want to add, though, before we move on to the next fear topic is that I want you guys to, and you know, do this little exercise or whatever. Close your eyes if you got to do it. But think of when you are in a fearful state. What happens in your mind? What happens in my mind when I'm in a fearful state? My mind starts going crazy. Right? It starts firing off so many signals, and I start thinking, you know, times 100. And you know what I'm thinking about? I'm trying to prove, you know, why I should hold on to a trade, or why I should, you know, maybe size into it, or all this kind of stuff. And I'm looking for external reasons to confirm my fear, of just taking the losing trade. Whenever
Right.
I feel fear, my body and my mind go through so many different actions just to get rid of that feeling. It's doing whatever it can do to make my mind comfortable with the decision that I'm about to make. That's what's going on. That's
Right.
what's going on in the bowels of my mind. It is throwing everything at me to rationalize my situation and to get rid of this feeling of fucking fear, right?
Yep. Yep.
And meanwhile, so what do you guys do? And all you retail guys and all you beginning traders, guess what you do? You go on your Yahoo message boards, you go on your marketwatch.com, and you go on Twitter, you see what other people are doing in that stock. You try to give yourselves reasons to not look right in front of you at this loss that you need to take. And you try to rationalize around it, and all this stuff is going on in your mind. It takes you away from what you need to do. Realize that, hey, this is a shitty position here. I'm in it for the dumbest reasons in the world. I shouldn't have been in it in the first place, so let me get the fuck out. You know, it's very simple, right? But your mind is doing so much, and it's literally attacking you from all angles to get you to avoid that, or to get you to stomach, you know, what you really need to do.
Right.
You know, and it's kind of weird, jumbled way of throwing it out there, and I'm not sure if everybody understands me, but that's kind of what's happening to me, you know, when you know, I'm in a fearful position. Let's say I have $1 million on the line in Priceline, and I'm down 100 grand in it, and my option has zero liquidity. If I plug out, I'm going to lose 300 grand. I don't want to take that loss, so I'm sitting here trying to fudge around in that option, trying to beat a market maker who knows damn well I don't have a chance in the world to get out of my size, you know, because he's looking at me like, there's no way I'm going to take your size unless it's 2 points lower. All right. So either you accept it now, or you either sell it back to me 2 points lower like a fucking idiot, and which is oftentimes what happens. You know what I mean? So again, so this is what's going on in your head when you're fearful about a decision that you need to make. So you need to be used to it. You need to feel what it feels like. And you need to grab it by the bullhorns and say, no, you know what I mean? I don't need all this stuff. When my mind goes like this, just shut it off. Just shut it off. You have the power to shut it off. You have the power to shut it off and to listen to your gut instinct. Most of you don't, because of what your mind does and because of fear and what it does to your emotions. That's what's happening.
And it takes time. It's, you know, it's exposure therapy, you know, is what you would call it. Like if you're afraid of snakes, you know, someone who's like practicing exposure therapy, they wouldn't throw you into a snake pit with a bunch of king cobras, right? I mean, they're not going to go like that. They'd put like a little teeny gardener snake in front of you, and they'd be like, how you feeling right now? Get used to the discomfort that you're feeling, right? That's why when we were talking to you earlier on the chat, you're talking about going from sim trading to real trading. Start small, right? So you can get used to fear and size up, you know, and get used to it. But the only way to do it is to expose yourself to it and to realize, you know, you're not going to die. The world isn't going to come to an end. You lose money, and you're better off, you know, not avoiding it, getting comfortable with discomfort, as cliche as that sounds.
Right. That's a good way to put it. I like that.
John, this is a great statement right there. A great question. You know, John says, my main fear is, what if after 2 to 4 years I'm still not making it and still just grinding it out? After all the learning, all the expenses, time, and money, I still don't make it big. That's my biggest fear every morning and every night. What to do about that? Luch, I want to see what you think.
Yeah. I mean, you know, this would be the biggest fear for a lot of people. And guess what, Charles? And you know what? And let me actually bring up my UMass Lowell experience. Guys, I had a nice presentation at UMass Lowell last night. And, you know, I'm talking to a bunch of 18-year-old, 19-year-old seniors in college that are interested in the finance world. They want to get into investment management, portfolio management. They want to be traders, analysts, shit like that. And one of the most common questions, and by the way, the Q&A lasted for like 45 minutes. They were so enthralled because all the people that they go, you know, that go to talk to them are these, you know, very dry, they try to pitch them on these financial internships and shit like that. Meanwhile, I come out there just busting guns, and these kids are like, oh my God, man, who is this guy? So one of the most common questions and fears was wrapped around what John just said. It's like, what am I going to do here if I elect this particular career path and I'm not where I want to be, right? And John, that's fucking life, man. That is life. I'll tell you one thing is that you either have it or you don't. I will say that because there's a certain percentage of people that don't think like that. So John, when I started trading, I never thought about what if I'm, you know, what if I can't do this or whatever. Like, you know, in the beginning year, I saw the money there. I saw the money every single day. You see the money. So it's just a question of you figuring out how to get it. It's there. So there was never I never had that question. I never asked myself that question. Like, what if I'm not making 2 to 4 years? My thing was like, how much am I going to be making? How much am I going to be making? I'm going to be making a couple mil or whatever. That was always my driving force. But now, as far as expenses and all that kind of stuff, that's a real problem. And that's a real problem that if you're sitting there thinking about it and it outweighs your belief in yourself, your confidence in yourself, you know, your confidence in your abilities to pull this off, if that fear outweighs your confidence, man, you already shot yourself in the foot. You're already going down that road. You just don't know it yet, man. And you're going to end up there after wasting, you know, a considerable amount of time and a considerable amount of money. That's where you're headed anyway. So I would say that. So it's more of an aggressive answer to that. I know you probably don't want to hear that. And it's probably pretty raw right there, you know, but that's kind of my response to that one. I have a lot more responses to that, but Charlie, I'll let you throw in.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of different things. One is you have to try and identify the parts of your fear that are based in reality, right? Like if you are afraid, if your income is entirely dependent on trading, and if you're afraid that you're not going to be able to pay, you know, put food on the table for your newborn child, yeah, that's a fear that is legitimate, and you need to.
That's legitimate. Yeah, that's a real fear.
I mean, Chris, you know, Heckerman said, get a day job. You know, do something that you can actually, in reality, mitigate that fear. Right? That's important. But then there's other parts of it where when you really sit back and think about it, you're like, I'm actually really just afraid of what people think about me. Right? I'm afraid that I'm going to be at a party. Like, imagine yourself confronting this fear in your actual life and say, where would you confront this, John, if you're like, you know, in 2 to 4 years, if you still haven't made it and you spend a lot of money, you know, on courses and whatnot, are you imagining yourself at a party with a bunch of your college friends, whatever, and you know, they all sitting around being like, dude, you've been doing this for 4 years, you haven't made any money, what's the matter, whatever. You know, for me, that's always a big thing. I mean, as an entrepreneur, a lot of my friends, you know, went to elite schools and whatnot. Guys,
yeah, you came out of Duke, guys. He came out of Duke. So all his boys are investment management. They all came in on the ground floor of these large brokerage firms. They all got six-figure jobs, and it looks like they got a nice life and everything. And meanwhile, Charlie staked out a different claim, right? He chose to go a different path. But that fear of him just hanging around at a fucking bar and let's say, you know, some shit happened or he failed or whatever, how's he going to feel in that situation? That's cool, man. Yeah. I never did the visualization kind of thing like that. That's cool.
Yeah, so I think actually visualizing, you know, how do you actually encounter this fear in your life? And I started doing that because, yeah, of course, I mean, this is a startup. We're in, you know, we're trading. There were months in our operations where we were living lean, you know, and we're in Manhattan. So you go to, my friends are like, hey, let's go to dinner. And it's a $200 a person dinner. And I'm like, I'm going to get Chipotle and I'll meet you there. And I just got comfortable with it. And I was like, what I'm doing, I believe in, you know, it's exciting. It provides a lot more juice to me than taking a safer route, right? And so, you know, just visualizing, like, how do you encounter that fear? It's can be a good exercise, and it helps you. For me, it helps me, you know, put it in perspective, right? If you got, you know, sometimes the fear just becomes all encompassing, and you're like, oh my God, all you can see is that right in front of you, right? The fear, let's say it's the fear of a loss, of a losing trade, but you can shrink that down and put it in perspective. It's like, okay, well, it's just my job, you know, it's just this amount of money. It's a small piece of money, and when you look at that perspective of your friends, your family, you know, spirituality, whatever it is that is the bigger picture there, it gets a lot smaller. You can shrink that thing down, you know? And so, John, I would say do those mental exercises and play with it a little bit and see if you can shrink it down. You know, that's
yeah. Shrink the scope down, and again, like John, every morning, every night. So I know you're in a position where you feel backed up against the wall, like just the way that you put it out there. Like, I still don't make it big. You said that a couple times. That's my biggest fear, every morning and every night. So that,
right.
I'm assuming you're dreaming about green and red ticks and X, Y, and Z happening in your, you know, you got nightmares and shit like that even too. So John,
Right.
like, you're in a position where, you know, you might feel like you're backed up against the wall and you have to make these things happen. And John just said he's 22, right? Making 5 figures a year, but I'm not seeing improvement in my trading. You know what else too that I found was such a common instance among people your age, and myself included, which finally it took me a while to realize, is that we are the most impatient motherfuckers on the planet. You are, as a 22-year-old, in the environment that you are growing up in right now, you are the most impatient motherfucker on the planet. I know this already. So you want these things to happen right now. You want these things to happen tomorrow. You want them to happen yesterday. And you want that time back that you even made mistakes on. But what you don't realize is you have to put that time in. That time has to go in order for you to achieve X, Y, and Z. It's going to happen as long as you keep plugging away at it, okay? That's it, bottom line, right? And you're 22, you got years ahead of you, bro.
Years.
If
I mean,
you're
John,
more,
22
if you are
isn't-
just,
yeah.
if you are simply more patient and you are more understanding of the fact that, you know, this is a process here that is not something that, you know, next year all of a sudden you're going to have some cash flow and blah, blah, blah. That's when your trading gets to where it needs to be, bro. And it took me a long time to realize this, my friend, and I've gone through more ups and downs than I care to fucking talk about, okay? So I know this. I'm like your older brother or your older father even right now, even though I'm only fucking 9 years older than you. This is the game, bro. And if your impatient 22-year-old fucking ass will calm down for a couple of seconds, you might actually figure out some big picture shit that you need to realize. And think of yourself as lucky that I'm telling you this, because if you figure this out now, bro, there's nothing that's going to stop you for the next 10 freaking years of your life, man. All right?
Yeah. I mean,
chill out, man. Chill the fuck out.
Yeah, being young. I mean, John, I know you said you feel like you've been doing this for ages. I mean, you're. It's not talking down you or anything. I mean, hey,
yeah, not at all.
People look at Pete and Roy and Lucci and I and whatever as sort of infants in the game. In the grand scheme of things, we're still completely considered young guns. I mean, think of that guys who are running billion-dollar hedge funds. I mean, these guys are 50, 60, 70 years old.
60 years old.
They got 35 years experience. So, you know, if you have a couple of years of experience on your belt, you're 22, you have so much time, man. You have so much time. So,
and again, Charlie, this goes back to the beginning of the coincidental nature of the shit that's happening in my life right now, bro. Right. I speak to these 19-year-old kids, and guess what? Like, look at this, what he's saying. So I'm seeing people get nice 6-figure jobs. Right. Like, dude, when I came out of college, bro, when I was 19, I was selling porno DVDs, bro. I was painting people's houses. When I went to talk to these kids, they were talking about wholesaling real estate, bro. They were talking about buying debt in a foreign country. They were talking about their investment portfolios. Do you know how smarter kids are at his age than I was, man? It's unbelievable. And just because now you see your boys getting 6-figure jobs and you're 22, that puts so much more pressure on you than I had, than what my parents had, and all that kind of stuff. That's what you're dealing with, bro. So you need to chill the fuck out, man. And you need me to tell you this, because ain't nobody else going to tell you this, man. That's literally what you need to do.
You know what? And one of the things that actually helps a lot with this stuff, read biographies, right? Read the Andre Agassi biography. It will, you know, you want to talk about fear running someone's life. Like when you look at people who have made it to the height of their profession, and you see the level of fear that they had to deal with to get there and what they got through, it puts it in such perspective where you're just like, my God, you know, it will change your understanding of things. So,
Definitely.
I mean, we're getting, what time is it? I feel like we've been going for a while here, man.
Yeah, it's like 5 or 6. I
All
think
right,
we had
well,
another quick point here on the fear side of things. I don't know if you want to bring that out or you want to do
yeah,
part
well,
2 maybe.
I mean, we probably should do a follow-up to this one, but, you know, we got a couple questions here. But I want to give you, you know, the chance to talk like a little bit about on your side, right? Like,
Yeah. We didn't even get to that. So guys, like I'm going through a period where, you know, I'm in a drawdown sort of period where, you know, my trading hasn't been the greatest. It hasn't been the greatest. In 2014, it hasn't been the greatest. And I can say that is a direct result of I wouldn't say fear, but like a derivation of fear, a sort of derivative of fear, and pressure and things like that. And, you know, it's forced me to go into a super, mental understanding, self-aware kind of thing where I'm trying to just search in the bowels of my head again for answers to my current predicament here. And what it is similar to what John is going through right now, is that I got into a state where, you know, I expected X, Y, and Z to happen. You know, it wasn't there, and I chased after things, and I forced things to happen just to, you know, provide, just to provide, I guess, a gateway to where I wanted to be. And these were the things that were influencing my decision. So it was a fear that, dude, can I consistently make 300% a year or 400% a year or that kind of thing? And the pressure of having to do that forced me into a situation where I'm making a lot of trades that I don't want to make. And you go back to the same root of a decision-making process of actually just making a trade and taking a loss. It goes right back to that. It's what are the deciding factors to you actually making those decisions. And if those factors are outweigh, you know, your instinct and all that kind of stuff, it puts you in that kind of a downward spiral. So whatever fear that you might have or whatever things that you might have going on in your life, all of that stuff ends up getting funneled out through your decision making as a trader. You know, so this is more of a reason why you as a trader, you need to work towards a self-awareness. You need to work towards understanding how your mind works. You need to work towards how to be balanced. You need to work towards all these things. I mean, sure, you can achieve success here and there and you know, ego and all that kind of stuff. But eventually you have to mature. You have to become you know, the trader that you always wanted to be, or the person who made the decisions that you always wanted to make at the right times, you know, which is a trader's, you know, this is what we do. This is what defines us. Are we the trader that makes the right decision at the right time? Yes? Great. We're making fucking millions. No, we're getting our ass kicked, you know? So whatever those reasons are, and they might change. They obviously change as well as your life changes. Your life changes every single year. My life changes God knows how much within such a short period of time. My life changes month to month. It's week to week. When we were in New York, when I was in New York with these fools, man, and living with these guys, I can't even believe that shit happened, you know? You got 2 years of a frat-style loft, you know, where our lives change every single day. This new stuff, there's some new wrench in the plan or some great success would happen every single day. And our lives changed as a result. And because of those changes, you know, we thought differently. You know, we made decisions differently. We made decisions based on different things differently.